So I don't know if you guys watch the same type of videos as I do, but recently at work, I've been one thing I've been going on a rant, watching videos where it's talking about advice for writing books, because I'm in the middle of writing a book right now. I'll probably talk about that in a different video sometime. Actually, a bunch of videos, hopefully. We'll see what happens with that. But on the same note, I've also been listening to a lot of videos talking about how AI is taking over the writing industry, and the dangers of AI. And you can find plenty of other people who talk about this. But this, I just wanted, and I will come back to once I'm an actual author, come back and talk about this more. But for right now, I just wanted to talk about it because I'm passionate about this last couple of weeks about the problem of AI. And so here's my insight into this whole situation that's going on with AI right now in the writing industry. So the first question to ask yourself is, why is this even a problem? Well, we'll talk about why from a creative standpoint and all that later, but also why are people doing this in the first place? Well, it's because there's a bunch of gurus on YouTube and everywhere who has this idea, make quick money with AI. Videos like this. I can't show you an actual one of these people's videos because they might try to copyright me and try to sue me or anything. Like, I don't know. You never know what these people who are all out to just get a bunch of money are going to do. But here's my rendition of what they look like. I'm making multiple six-figure incomes yearly, and I can show you how you can do the same. 10 grand every month from passive income. All you have to do is put in some basic AI prompts, and they will write you your own books that you can publish on Amazon and make millions. So, as you see in that video, it promises this idea of get a bunch of money, don't have to do much work. No, that can be appealing to some people. The fact, especially the fact about money, you could get a job that pays really well, but you have to do hard work. There's a job I just put in for that's exactly it. It pays well, but if I get that job, that's also a lot of hard work to do, right? That's how I make that money. But they give this promise of don't do much work, get a bunch of money. I get this idea of fast money. I get the appeal for that. Right now, I'm struggling with the fact that I need to be out of the place I live in right now by the end of the month. I can't seem to find a place that's cheap enough for me to live. I can actually afford. So this idea of, just publish a couple of fake books and then you can make money and you can afford an apartment, you can afford to live, right? That's appealing to people. These gurus are appealing off of these people's need to live a better life. They can have the good life if they do this, right? But you're cheating your way to that. And in the end, it's not going to really pay off. That's a big thing that a lot of people like to mention is even if, so let's just say you actually publish one of these books. Okay, people read the book and be like, this is AI. What are they going to do? They're going to return it back to Amazon. Suddenly all the money you made has to be refunded. So you're not making money. It gets a bunch of one-star reviews. This doesn't happen, but I wish it would happen. Amazon would remove that from their listing. They remove all the AI stuff, but they're making money somewhat off these people because there are a lot of grandmas who are buying these kids' books who don't realize that it's fake. I was looking up right before starting this video. There are, over 4 million books coming out a year. While we don't exactly know, because unless someone says it's AI, can never 100% say this is AI. But a lot of people say that it seems like around 70 to 80% of the books published every year nowadays, since AI became a thing, AI. We're going off just America. 4 million books published a year. That means close to 3 million of those books are all AI. We can't be 100% sure. They are, of course, just bad writers. See, that's the problem, and I'm about to get into that. I'm going to put that aside. I'm about to get into the problem of bad writers and how that plays into this. But there are a lot of books released a year. But if there was only good books being released, and I get, again, put aside the bad writers. I'll come back to that in a second. If actual people wrote a bunch of all these books, there might be bad books, but they're all by humans. These AI people are taking spots from actual humans. If you want to write a children's book, you will now have so much competition, but these competition are fake competition. If you cut away all the fake competition, then people can actually find your book and a book that's actually made by a person. It actually has creativity, and people could actually read a human's mind. That's another thing I'm going to get into a little bit later is the problem with AI when it comes to creativity. But that's one of the big problems with AI is it's filling gaps where actual human books could be coming out. Books that are really great. And if any of you guys are writers out here and have a book that's not getting that much attention and you feel like it's actually worth something, please feel free to make a comment below and tell me about your book. If it appeals to me, I'll check it out and I will put out a review for it. Encourage actual human writing. So let's get into that quickly. Bad writers. One of the problems I run into with AI is the fact of, okay, so I'm starting my first draft of my book, right? And something that I can't wait until I actually have a book or two out, because then I can talk about this more and be in more of an encouragement. Because right now I'm like, if I say stuff, if I encourage people, it's going to be coming from a place of, I'm working on a book, but I've never put out a book. I can't tell you if it actually works or not. I could just say, this is what I found. But what really got me to this point where I'm close to 10,000 words into my book, on about halfway through the second chapter. And what got me to finally start writing it was realizing this is a first draft. I can have it be terrible. I just need to write something down. And then you go through again and you edit that. And then you make it good, right? Your first draft is not your final draft. It's your first draft. So if it takes a year to write a terrible book, but has great ideas in it, then you can go through and say, this whole scene right here can be taken out. This whole, my book, I'm afraid it's going to probably be too long based off the fact that, again, 10,000 words in and I'm only halfway through the second chapter. My first chapter was, a little over 5,000 words, and I have barely reached the surface of what this book is talking about, and I'm only 10,000 words in. So I'm like, I know there's going to be stuff I'm going to have to cut out. That I'm like, okay, that scene doesn't need to be there. The point is, it's still a human. That's a human. Humans can write terrible, right? A lot of the bad writings, they don't need to be there. What they need is, you need to realize that bad writing you have is not a bad thing. If it's bad, that's okay. The important thing is then you go through it again and say, what can I do to change this to make it good now? Yes, so sometimes when there are terribly designed books, these books are just off. But in the same way, one big thing I've been watching videos about, because I found it actually kind of interesting, is the fact of people reviewing 1-star books, or people taking their favorite books, they love these books, and reading the 1-star reviews of. Because it shows I might hate a book. One thing I haven't talked about much on this channel, but I've talked about on my film channel before. I hate Star Wars. I think Star Wars is just terribly written. That's the truth. I don't like Star Wars. But so many people like Star Wars and say it's like incredibly written. See, that doesn't take away from my opinion or from your opinion of having that different thing. Thus, what I might call bad writing, other people might call great. But the important thing is, and why I bring this up in this conversation about AI, is the fact that one day AI is going to be bad writers level. Right now, there's somewhat getting a little bit to that. There are ways to tell, the M dash. I wish I used the M dash. I love the look of the M dash. I think it's a great way. I used it once in my book, but then I found a way to, as I was, finishing the sentence, I found a way to actually take that out and it made more sense. But I love the M dash, what it looks like. It really brings out out that sentence in the page, but it's also very commonly used by the AI in books and all. So you can notice that the sets are free, the M dash, the unpersonal to it. The one thing I'm finding as I'm writing my book is the fact that so much people are telling me, people 100% are true when they say your voice is in your book. If it's actually written by you, your voice is in there, right? There are points in that book that might have to edit out, but I read it and I'm like, this is me. This sounds like me. This is stuff like the fact that I can go on little rants about stuff that's off topic. In this book, there are some moments where I just suddenly go on a rant for a second and be like, this scene happens in a book, and then in the book, and then suddenly I'm like, but this character didn't really hate his parents. And it's important to realize that in a for a half a paragraph, I go on a little bit of a rant about the importance of being willing to, love people who gets on your nerves sometimes, being able to understand people, or being able to not blame other people for your faults. These are things I might have to take out my book in the end, But in the same way, it's me. That sounds like me. That's how I write. That's how I talk. That's me. As you've been seeing in this video, I go on rants about stuff sometimes. That's just who I am. If I just tell AI to write a fantasy book, and I even give it some suggestions of this scene and this scene, right? It's going to write it just like everyone else. Every other AI book could be written. When it's my writing, it's in my style. It is my words. If I change a word, it doesn't change my writing. Like, I can change words around, but it's the style I write in, the way I talk to my audience that is me. It gives out me. And I can't wait until my book comes out and then having people who know me personally being able to read it and be like, I heard your voice while reading this, because it is you talking. It sounds like you. So even in bad writing, it still sounds like a human. And also there's creativity, right? If I put a prompt into an AI thing and say, write a fantasy book, give it some suggestions, and you can say those suggestions are the creative part of yours. But what it's going to come out with is a very bland, to-the-note story. If you put a prompt to make a mystery story, it's going to come out with just any mystery story. If Ryan Johnson just put into an AI prompt, write a mystery story, it would come out with something like a classic mystery story. But instead, he came up with this creative idea of, let's write a mystery story where you actually follow the murderer and you know who did it the whole time and you're trying to avoid the detective from figuring out. And then there's a lot of other things that go on in that story. But you see, that's more creative. I came up with this idea. Gone Girl is a commonly used one to explain, a trope that's turned upside down because of the story. That couldn't be written by AI. AI cannot think like a human. It cannot think out of the box. It thinks in a box. So your bad writing is better than AI just for the point that it is creative. There was this one woman I was, listening to a video where they was talking about her who used AI as a co-writer for one of her books. And her argument was that, okay, so the book was half taking place in the mind of an AI. So an AI writing it makes sense. Somewhat, yes. But again, as I mentioned before, it has no creativity. In the same way, an AI can't keep straight a good plot. It comes up with the dumbest plots and all. So you can come up with this great plot, but then, it switches to the AI and the AI messes up your whole story because of that. That's not okay. Less, in my opinion, if I have to sum it down to one thing, I feel less books, but better quality is better. Keep all the AI books. I don't care. One thing people like to bring up is the fact of these people who are saying, get quick with this money. But hold on. As I said before, they could just have these books returned anyways. But another thing they had the problem of, little wake-up call for you. In sad reality, writing doesn't pay well. It can pay well. You have, J.K. Rowling, people who are billionaires now, but somewhat that's also not just coming from their books themselves, it's coming from all the film adaptations and the theme park rides and all this other stuff that's causing her to get money from this. Most writers barely sell 1,000 copies. I hope when I write my book, it sells more than 1,000 copies, but that's the truth. It can sell, some only sell a couple hundred. Some don't even sell 100 copies. So this idea of write these AI books and you'll make you'll make millions doesn't work because, why choose that industry? Why choose that industry if you're not going to make good money off of that? There's a chance you might. What you're doing is filling the industry with more and more bad books. And thus, using economics for a second, right? If, when people say, I would wish, if I came upon a genie, I would wish for $1 billion, right? Okay, $1 million, whatever you want to say, right? The problem that people like to point out is, but that's not a good thing, right? If you say, I wish that I could get $1 million, so it could be okay, right? Then it's over, okay, so then you win a prize and you get $1 million or something like that. But the problem is, if you just wish more money into existence, it's going to lower the cost of the money. If you want to use gold, because that's the gold system is the system that most countries used to use and all. But basically, if you just wish a bunch of more gold into existence, the price of gold is going to go down, thus decreasing, the price of what stuff can be. increasing the price, right? If you make $1 billion disappear into your bank account, you have more money. But guess what? The money that you're putting out there now, there's more money in the world. That means the prices of stuff are going to go up. And thus, you're destroying the economy by doing that. In the same way, this book, if everyone's putting out AI books, it's going to increase the amount of books that are being put out. Thus, the chances of you actually getting somewhere with your AI book is going to be less. If you put out one book a year, that's actually a real book that you wrote, there's a higher chance that if everyone who did those AI books did that instead, there'll be less books, but higher chances you might actually get somewhere. So if any of you are watching this and you guys are thinking about doing those AI books and all, I want to point that out to you. You're going to probably there's a high chance you're actually going to make money if you put out one book a year that is an actual book, because that's another issue unto itself. The fact of, guess what? People read your books and they give you 1 stars. Versus if you make a good book, then people read your book, they're like, this book is incredible. Oh my god, like how did Harry Potter, how did Lord of the Rings, how did those books get somewhere, right? It didn't just get it from everyone happened to read this book, right? I knew about Harry Potter because someone told me about Harry Potter, right? I knew about the Lord of the Rings because I grew up with my mom being obsessed with the Lord of the Rings. She became obsessed with the Lord of the Rings. Why? Because, someone else told her parents, I believe, like my grandparents were the ones who told her, right? They heard about it because, you get the point? It goes back. Someone you knew read that book or would suggest that book by someone else. If you read a good book, let's just say you have 100 people pick up that book, right? Those 100 people all say, this book is incredible. I love this book. And then they say to 10 of those people they know, dude, you should pick up this book. Guess what? That is an extra 1,000 people who bought that book now, right? And then if those 1,000 people then go and tell, this is starting to sound like a pyramid scheme, but it's not a pyramid scheme. What that is that simply just pointing out the fact of people read books that people suggest them sometimes. Not all the time, but a lot of times it's because someone suggested it. If you had a good book, there's a higher chance you're going to make good money off of that book because people are going to love this book and be like, I love this book. I love the story it tells about in this book. I can't wait. I want to tell other people about this book. I run a channel talking about books, right? The books I review on this channel, I'm probably going to, for the most part, keep the books I review, all to books I like. Why? Because I want to spread the news of these books that I like. And I'm like, oh, you should totally read this book. If you are into these type of books at all, you should read it, right? That's how it works. Yeah, you might have a couple of times where I'm like, I came upon this really bad book and I'm like, but that's popular and other people may have not read it. Like, that's starting to get popular and you might have not read it. And I'm like, I read it so you don't have to. It's bad. Don't read it, right? Stopping that book from getting more money because of how bad it is. If it's AI written, stuff like that, right? But if it's a good book, you're going to hear someone might have picked it up and read that book. Thus, it's going to get somewhere. So you're going to make more money in the end if you make a good book, right? There's a chance if you make an AI book, you may make a bunch of money at the beginning, but then all those returns happen. And even if the returns didn't happen, after that book has been after someone has picked up that book as AI, someone reads a comment and says, this is AI, no one will pick up the book again. So what good are you doing in the end by doing that? That's the question you have to ask yourself. So AI, problem with books comes down to, it's filling the slots where good books can go. It's causing people who are lazy just be able to put out a book because suddenly you can get rich off of this. Like, you can't. It's destroying people's creativity. And biggest of all, and the problem I have, is it's causing people who may have just written a bad book to have people claim that they are just writing with AI instead of helping these people say let's fix this book. Instead, people are being assumed that those people are just using AI. So there's one more thing I wanted to make sure to bring up before I ended this video, and that is the fact of, I didn't want to come off as a hypocrite to those who do use AI and all, because of the truth. The truth is, I have used it before. It can be handy sometimes. And even, I have to admit, even recently, when writing the first draft of my book, there have been multiple times I've used AI to help my thoughts and all. And I'll show you why. Like, here, for example, I'll pull up a Microsoft Word document. I'll show you what I'm talking about with. There's times I have used AI recently for my stories and all. it comes down to this, right? So it helps with writable. I understand where people come from, where it helps with writer's block. And this is not me justifying it, right? It helps with writer's block, right? So I'm going to write a sentence. Like, for example, you have the sentence, Jack ran towards his sister with a smile. Right? You can take the sentence, then you just click on Copilot, and boom, auto rewrite the sentence. And I would never click on one of these, right? Jack approached his sister with a smile on his face, right? Jack hurried over to his sister, grinning happily. Jack ran to his sister, smiling, right? All these examples are terrible in my opinion. They're decent sometimes. This is not the worst example, but the truth is I would never use any of these. But sometimes if I'm caught in I have to admit, sometimes when I'm caught in a trap in one of my stories, and I'm like, I just write down an idea of what I'm thinking, right? This, but I don't know how I'm going to say the sentence, right? I write down this. Jack ran towards his sister with a smile. Click on that, and boom, now I get some examples. And now I can take this and I click off of that. For the most part, I have never used any of those examples, but I use it to just, okay, but now I know I want to use the word approached his sister with a smile, right? Now I couldn't remember what word to use there. Now I can change that to approach, and it sounds cooler than ran. He approached his sister, right? That's the only times that recently I've used AI in that for those things. But for the most part, I'm now going to open up a ChatGPT thing I did, and I was trying to figure out names for some of my stories, right? So I was writing down this stuff, and these are the names I came up with. And honestly, after looking at this stuff, and I'm just going past it really fast, I really got nowhere. Honestly, I feel like, because one of the problems I run into is coming up with character names, and it didn't help me at all. So, I tried to, for another book I'm writing, which is a mystery story, I tried to get a police report, and this is what it came out with, and it's this is not that helpful. So in the end, I had to just look up on Google what a police report looked like, in the end, anyways. So I'm just saying, what's the point in the first place? But I just wanted to make sure it's very clear to you guys, when I'm criticizing AI, it's coming from a place of, I get it, I've used AI, it helps with writer's block sometimes, but after doing this research, honestly, even the little bit I did do, I'm going to cut away from, because I just don't particularly like it. I used it just to help with a couple times where I was reading it, and I was writing something, and I just couldn't figure out the words, and so I could use Copilot to basically say exactly what I was trying to say, somewhat the wording is never right, and I'm not gonna pull my own story, so you can't really. Maybe in a later thing, I can show you some parts of my story, but I started to figure out what I'm willing to share when it comes to my stories, because of reasons of wanting to make sure it stays my story and no one copies it. That's a whole other thing onto itself. But the point is, there's a bunch of lines in my book that autocorrect is saying oh, this is not incorrect. You click on it and it says change it to it or change it to this and that. I'm like, but it's talking about a human. It's it wants to add sometimes what I into a sentence when it's not supposed to be there. I'm not talking in first person. I'm talking in third person in this story. It's it doesn't understand English somewhat. And so you have to take that with a grain of salt as you're writing the stories. You have to be okay, but this story is never, this AI is never going to fully understand how they'll talk like a human, apparently. But yeah, but I have to say, even after doing this research, even a little bit of AI where I would just use it, it came from a place of laziness, to be honest. It came from a place of saying, I don't care to just get off the tab and type into Google different words to say approach, different words for approach, or different words for this and that. If I just looked that up, I could do it too. But it kind of helps sometimes. And yes, it's only a first draft, so it's a little bit, you can have those mistakes in it of, yeah, there's a little bit of an half AI sentence in there that in the end, when you go through the second draft, you change that completely, and so it's no longer there at all. But I see where people come from, and if someone told me that they use AI to help someone, not brainstorm is the wrong word, but use it to help with writer's block by, I write a basic sentence and it changes it into the full sentence I need it to be, can help. But that's the only way I can even like be willing to accept people using AI, is if it's completely, I'm writing the story, I'm just having AI help me with those couple words. But again, after recording this and after, doing that research before making this video, even that I'm going to step away from, because it's just, was it handy? Of course it's handy. And somewhat, I paid for Microsoft 360 and it comes with Microsoft 360. So I'm like, I want to take advantage of this. But in the same way, as I showed before, like those ones weren't as bad, but there was a bunch of terrible examples to get. And most of the time, if I click on those, like one of those, I could actually put that in and that would have actually worked somewhat as a sentence. Most of the time, the sentences it come up with are absolutely insanely bad. And I'm like, no, I am not putting that in my book because that is awful. Like, AI just doesn't make good sentences and all. But yeah, I don't know. I wanted to make sure to be clear about that I have used AI before, and so I can't I can't be too critical of AI for that reason. But, I can still mention the fact that, it is a problem and that I don't plan to use it after that. But yeah, I wanted to make sure to put that out there. Yeah, I don't know. Like, sometimes it can be helpful to help with, it's 1 o'clock in the morning and you're trying to finish this paragraph and you write down something, you're like, that is not good. But then you use AI to fix the sentence and make it sound better by using those couple words. But in the end, as I said before, get a dictionary, get some, just look up online, synonyms for this word, and you are going to find it without using AI. So I don't know. Yeah. If you want to, I'm just saying, if I hear the writer is using AI for this purpose, it's you still being creative. It's just using them as it's the same thing with, some people like to point out the same thing with spell check. Using spell checks to fix a word is okay. Same way with this. It's not as bad, but in the same way, I don't know if I'll use it again. I just wanted to be clear with you guys that I have used it in the past just to help out with brainstorming stuff in my head of, I can't quite figure out what the right wording for the sentence would be. And it's not been like by the end of my book, when I've been writing it for months, I'm going to be so used to how to write now that, because I got it in my head again, that I won't even need that at all when going through it again and writing my other books. And so, I don't know. Just wanted to make sure to bring that up. And yeah, if you guys tell me your thoughts below about what you guys think of AI and where it should be used and where it really shouldn't. If you guys want to see more videos like this, consider commenting below. If any of you guys are writers, please feel free to leave your book in the comments below. Might check it out. I can't promise I'll check it out. I'm not buying too much paperback books right now, sadly, because I don't know what the future's going to hold with my position of where I'm living, but I don't plan to keep that much physical books with me